Our next speaker is Jörg Matschullat, who's the Harris Visiting Professor at Dartmouth College. Jörg's fields of study include environmental geochemistry and climate systems, and many of the complex interactions around it. Again, I'd like to share a little bit about Jörg and how you have inspired me in my life. It was a little over a year ago. Jörg had recently arrived as a visiting professor, and I was invited to meet you at a coffee or lunch or something. And we sat down and just started chatting, and you gave me a beaming smile. And it really touched me. I felt that here is someone who is both deeply knowledgeable and experienced scientifically in ways that are urgent for our planet, who shows up with such joy. And so after that first meeting, I followed up. I think my first email back to you was, would you like to come to a mindfulness retreat? Knowing nothing about Jörg beyond our light conversation over coffee. And you said yes. So, thank you. So, Jörg, the stage is yours.
Thank you, dear soul. Thank you, everyone. I never sought after mindfulness. I think mindfulness sought after me throughout my life without me noticing, really, through most of the time. I would like to acknowledge the lotus flower that was visible a little bit earlier, because this lotus flower also accompanies me for a long period of my time and means a lot to me, but that's a different story. I do not really have anything new to say after all those enriching talks that we already listened to. And I was particularly impressed by the three panelists and Antran, who really moved me deeply. And I was telling my neighbor Paula, it is these young people that motivated me to become an academic teacher, to support such personalities, to encourage them when they need encouragement, because they are the ones making a difference, just like every single one of you is making a difference. We had a magnificent talk by you, John, last night, which was encouraging and very beautiful. And being a scientist, I simply cannot help it. I have to give an idea for a book to read, which I read by chance just recently on a flight to Ecuador. It's by Justin Gregg, If Nietzsche Was a Narwhal: What Animal Intelligence Reveals About Human Stupidity. And it's actually in direct continuation of your wonderful thoughts yesterday, for which I'm really, really thankful. I will use a few examples of things that accompanied my life to illustrate this point that mindfulness seems to be haunting me. But beforehand, I would like to say something about science. There are so many ideas or projections in society what science is and what scientists are, and we are confronted with this right now, especially in this country, which ticks very different from my backdrop in respect to the society-science relationship. I'm from Germany. Scientists pursue answering questions of either the unknown or of what is not sufficiently understood. At least that's the ideal. And some don't do anything but that, not even publish. And that's okay. You can dedicate your life to that. And then there are people, also scientists, who are, just like at Dartmouth College, dedicating their life to doing that plus teaching, which is wonderful. And for some, this is also the end point. And then there is a third group, and this third group, for whatever reason, thinks this is not enough. And this third group attempts, and we heard that in various examples today and also in the last 2 days, attempts to include society, be it minorities or majorities, it doesn't really matter, and to deliver something on the side of basic research that serves communities. And that makes normal people, like non-scientists, are normal. We are not normal, we are weird. Normal people appreciate science because they cannot appreciate basic research outcomes. That's impossible. But they can appreciate if there is a very practical advice for, be it a handyman, or be it an agriculturist, a forester, or whatever. So let's take a little journey. What is forward? Forward is green. It's not easy being green. And go to India. I was a conscientious objector, largely because of the history of Germany. And after doing social service in a wonderful environment, my boss somehow fathomed that I had a deep longing, without being able to explain it, for India, Indian culture, Hinduism, etc., etc. And he made it possible for me to go to India and do social work, which had nothing to do with my first formation. So I was beamed into an environment that is culturally radically different from ours, I can say. I was confronted from day one with the death of people, innocent people, on the sides of the street because of diseases or because of hunger. And that was a major challenge. It took me several weeks to accept that reality and to not be so preoccupied with this dark side that I could see the full bandwidth of colors in this magnificent society. And at the same time, I realized my deep privileges, and we had this term coming up a little bit earlier. And that really hit me, because I had never, ever before, growing up as a post-war child, realized how privileged I was with everything, including my family. So this experience, this is just an arbitrary selection of some photos that I took, changed my life. And in the beginning, I didn't want to go back to Germany. I wanted to stay in India because I felt useful for the first time in my life. Then I did decide to go because also many friends, new friends in India, told me you get a much better education in your home place as compared to here. And back then that was true. We're talking about the 1970s. So I went back to Germany. Took me more than a year to get reaccustomed to that society. And I sought after every single opportunity to flee the country as fast as possible, as far away as possible. And one of the opportunities was to go to Ghana. But this was already working in the backdrop of geosciences. And I became first I got unemployed because the project that I went for did not exist, it just existed on paper. So I was jobless, and I went from door to door trying to find an opportunity to work. I didn't want to twiddle my thumbs. And I was invited to volunteer in a project that was drilling wells for rural people. It was called the 3,000 well drilling program. I thought, this sounds really magnificent because people need drinking water. I went there, got there, helped, basically as a hydrogeologist. And different from my fellow travelers in the project, I perceived that the people were not happy about our work. And I didn't understand it. So I went in the evenings when I had free time, I went into the villages, and they were very kind to me. And little by little, they taught me a lesson. We were drilling on holy places. How can you, right? You quoted Greta Thunberg yesterday. How dare you? Holy places to drill a water well? Absurd. And that made me question the entire so-called development aid idea of our cultures. And I learned a lot in Ghana, and one of the things was being confronted with my own racism. I never thought I was a racist, but there is racism in me. And it was a tough lesson to learn, and I have to thank a wonderful Ghanaian student who was with me, and we spent the nights discussing wildly. And again, it changed my life and my perspective. At about the same time, I had the first visit with my grandfather to Brazil. That's a different story. But somehow the experience of this first visit stuck in me and never left me again. And as of '98, I have been working in Brazil and other Latin American countries intensively. And these are just some images. And that was the first time when I came to a foreign country as a principal investigator. All times beforehand, I was like a subordinate person. And I applied in the beginning, let's say, the character of a typical principal investigator in our Western world. And I ran very quickly against a very massive concrete wall. And I'm glad I realized that comparatively early. And after many apologies and many, many discussions with my Brazilian colleagues, I understood that the rules and norms, also within the hierarchy of positions, can be radically different. It taught me a lesson. A few years later, I was fluent in Portuguese, and doors opened that I beforehand did not even think they could exist. By now, I swim like a fish in water in the Brazilian environment, and I love it very, very much. And I'm very, very thankful, even to every single one of these people there. And then, many years later, I came to a place that is familiar to most of you here in this room, I suppose. At least some of you may know the Baker Tower, the bell tower from the inside. That's the top left. And you see the green on the lower picture. And you see a photo, which is my excuse why I was not punctual at the retreat. There was a demonstration going on here in Hanover, but also in White River Junction, and my wife and I decided to increase the numbers. When I came to Dartmouth, I had this image, and I should briefly say I have an intense exposure to Canadian culture, and unlike much of the Canadian perception, especially in Ontario and Quebec, that there is a giant division between Ontario, Quebec, and then the US. I cannot confirm that. It's pretty much the same culture, the same values, etc. There are differences, but they are really, in my eyes, minor. So I thought I come into a society here in New Hampshire that is pretty much known to me. And I know the workings. And there's U of T somewhere here. Can't see you right now. And it's not. And I learned something that is very important and is very new to me, in a way at least, that even or especially if you think you know a society and norms and rules and regulations of an environment, you may be trapping into all the traps that exist much, much faster and much easier as compared to going into a radically foreign, strange society where you tiptoe more carefully because you are per se aware that it ticks differently. This story is not over. It has basically just started a year and a half ago. And I'm very, very curious how it may end. And I think I should stop at this point, hoping that I could bring across a little bit how mindfulness haunts me. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jörg. Your story